How you doing? This is Mike from Cold War Tactical. Thanks for checking out the channel. I'm going to start with what seems to be the obligatory disclaimers. I am not a lawyer. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice, which means that my layman's understanding of the law is probably just a little bit better than most people's layman's understanding of the law. That is a far cry from the Juris Doctorate degree that would make me a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. However, I am certified by the state of Texas to teach the Texas License to Carry a Handgun course, which includes blocks on the Texas Penal Code as well as a little bit on the Texas Civil Code. I am not a doctor, so anything that we discuss on this channel that is medical skills related, take it from the optic of somebody who has done a lot of good hands-on cross training in special forces. I am not a special forces medic. Prior to one deployment, we did, as a detachment, attend a specialized medical course at Eglin Air Force Base. It was the Operational Emergency Medical Skills course, OEMS. Hopefully I got that right. That course was geared actually towards medical professionals, either physicians or combat medics operating in austere environments. We went through that as non-medics with our team medics in preparation for a deployment. It was some really good hands-on training. That is my military background with trauma. In addition to that, on the civilian side, I teach the Stop the Bleed course, as well as the Tactical Emergency Casualty Care course, TECC, as is geared towards civilian immediate first responders, as in those civilians who are not EMTs or other paid first responders, and skills to stabilize or treat someone prior to the arrival on scene of EMS. That is the civilian equivalent to the TCCC, the Tactical Combat Casualty Care course that many from the military will be familiar with. This is the civilianized version. TCCC for the military focuses on the predominantly 18 to 40-ish physically fit demographic and combat trauma type wound treatment, as opposed to TECC being focused more on a civilian application, the pediatric through geriatric and some fit, some way not fit population groups, and stabilizing them prior to arrival of first responders. So that is the disclaimers in a nutshell. A little bit of background on me. I retired from the Army in 2012, Army Special Forces. Since then, I split my time between coaching and mentoring the current generation of soft warriors and providing instruction to the civilian community. When I'm not doing those things, I'm trying to find the balance with family, trying to be a good husband and father. So I say that to say this: if the comment sections below you put a comment or a question and there's a significant delay in me getting back to you, have some grace. Got a lot on my plate, and family comes before forums. Motivation for creating this channel. There's been a huge increase in first-time gun owners since the pandemic began. I'm not the kind of person who's going to tell you the sky is falling and the boogeyman is behind every bush. I will point out, though, that there has been a significant decline in crime reports for the past 20-odd years. And then when we had the Summer of Love of 2020, as crime in general is still on the decline, there was a spike in violent crime that has not abated all the way up until now in the January of 2022. So with that in mind, a lot of people become a lot more safety conscious, attempting to become more resilient, responsible for their own and their family's safety, and hence we see this spike, which surmise in first-time gun ownership. With that comes a lot of ignorance, a lot of things you see on forums, social media, bantered about in the media, the mainstream news, whichever flavor of it you subscribe to, that will have a lot of misinformation sprinkled in there. So having a place to come to for solid information, and especially methodologies for learning safe gun handling skills, I think ought to be accessible. For those of you who are familiar with a gentleman named Dr. Jordan Peterson, he began influencing on social media a long time ago. He began with the premise that everyone should have accessibility to knowledge. You shouldn't have to enroll in his university and sign up for his classes in order to get the content. He began filming a lot of his content actually in the classroom and then just posting it for general knowledge. This is where a lot of his viewership came from. Now, I don't tout myself as being of Jordan Peterson quality. Hell, I can't even get words out of my mouth consistently. But the point is, everybody should have access to knowledge. It should be solid knowledge, not some shenanigans that somebody's sprinkling out of their fourth point of contact. I will put in the description below what the fourth point of contact is for those of you that aren't tracking. There's also a fellow on the interwebs that I ran across, who I forget his name, I'll put it in the description below also, who describes when you're creating some kind of content, a YouTube or some channel like that, figure out what your genre is. I'm grossly paraphrasing. Are you putting out content to make you money? Or are you going to be a shill and try to make money selling other people's stuff or clickbait, etc., etc.? You can make funny cat videos. You can put out knowledge, whatever. Non-judgmental, whatever your shtick is, stick to it. I'm not much on funny cat videos, but there may be a little humor mixed in here and there. So solid knowledge is what I think is important to have access to. My goal is to publish new content about once or twice a month. Again, I got a lot of irons in the fire. Making YouTube videos and stuff like that's not my primary gig. If it picks up steam, if there's more interest, then by all means I may add content more frequently. What I pledge you not to do is to pester you daily with my drive to work, to the training area, with random thoughts of the day. That's not my thing. I will ask you to hit that subscribe and notification bell. That way you can be in the loop when new content is posted. That's how I will also, one of the metrics I will use to determine how much interest there is. As far as methodology, I'm a strong believer in the adult learning process. There are multiple ways that adults process data to learn. Reading, hearing, seeing are the primary ones. Doing is critical, especially if it's a tactile type skill. You can understand the concept or the hypothesis of how the gun works and safe gun handling and the fundamentals of marksmanship under stress, but until you actually apply that and the neural pathways fire often enough along those specific channels, then you're not going to retain those skills. It's just going to be general knowledge kept in the wrong part of the brain. So I will say that quality of repetitions is always going to trump the number of repetitions. Don't worry about how many repetitions you do. I want you to do them often, but I want each repetition to be quality. One of the drawbacks of this medium of instruction being video is that you're getting to hear and see, and occasionally I'll have something pop up somewhere for you to read, but until you actually do it, you're not going to integrate those skills. And those skills won't become part of the automatic response, as opposed to I've got to consciously think about what I'm doing. You don't have time to process stuff at the speed of life yet, or it has to be ingrained. There's a really good book that I like to reference when discussing about training methodologies. It's called The Talent Code. Now, it doesn't discuss marksmanship specifically. The fellow who wrote it went around the world looking for all the talent hotspots, like somewhere in Central South America for football, to Russia for the ballet, to somewhere else for the orchestra, etc., etc. Some of the things he looked at was the particular ways that people learn, characteristics of coaches, and then such techniques as chunking or breaking things into smaller pieces. So in some of these videos we'll discuss perfecting the sub-tasks before integrating them into the main tasks. For example, when you see someone learning to draw a gun from the holster, initially it is very blocky. It is Mr. Roboto-like. Do this step, followed by this step, followed by this step, followed by this step. The 4-step draw stroke. Unfortunately, in the real world, we're not going to be chunky when we draw the gun out to engage our threat. It needs to be nice and smooth. It needs to be polished. Now, in the real world, with a real threat at the speed of life, it's going to be a little bit of sloppy that's going to occur. However, we don't want to ingrain slop into the neural pathways. We want it to be nice and smooth and polished so that when game day occurs and we have to use force or deadly force, it is instinctive. We react intuitively, and if it's a little rough around the edges, we fight through it. But I prefer you to have clean repetitions with multiple repetitions so that you learn, or your brain, your neuroplasticity gets those, fine-tunes those neural pathways, put it that way. I will tell you up front that not all the techniques that I will present you will agree with. If it works for you, if it ain't broke, there's no reason to fix it. I will do my best with each technique that's presented in each of the videos to present my preferred technique, and then where possible, one or two alternate techniques. There's a saying that 2 is 1, 1 is none. If you have one technique and it works every time for you while you're standing on 2 feet with 2 hands squared to the threat, that's great. But will that translate when you're in a confined space, like sitting in the front seat of your car and a threat comes up right here outside your driver's side window? Or if you've been knocked flat on your back and now you're trying to fight to get to the gun from the supine position. Have different techniques, whether it's for presenting the gun, using the gun, fixing malfunctions, reloading, whatever it is, or getting back to your feet. Have multiple options. Have the one that you go to, that's your intuitive, but it would be highly advisable to have multiple options to pull from. Be able to react at the speed of life, because you never know what curveball life's going to throw at you. I will also do my best to provide primary source references down in the description block. Most things in gun handling is not rocket science. It doesn't take a pedigree to be able to defend yourself with a firearm. They are a great equalizer. Most things that I'm going to cover have already been hashed and rehashed and rehashed for ages. Some things are outdated, so I'm probably not even going to cover them. If I do, it would be an honorable dismention. If you prefer to use the teacup method while holding the gun, and it works for you, you do you. But if you show up to one of my classes on the range, I'm going to highly encourage you to move on to something a little bit more modern, something that may help save you or somebody else's life. Getting back on track here, I will put references down in the description where I see prudent, especially if I am citing something almost verbatim from another source. Okay, there may be other things that will amplify the instruction in the video, or maybe something that later on I go back and add to the description because a current event that happens after the video was produced may help to amplify a learning point that I was attempting to articulate in the video. So let's transition away from all that. You didn't come here to listen to me jibber jabber about myself or the channel. I trust you came here for quality instruction. If that's the case, then please go ahead and, here's that shameless plug, hit the, you got it, the like, the share if you want to, subscribe, and when the subscribe is done, there'll be a little bell that pops up so I can hit you up whenever there's a new video posted. All right, next we're going to talk about gun safety, so stick around.